Today we're covering the final episode of Heretics of Dune, just the very last sliver of the book. Just a warning to anyone who made it this far and didn't realize there's going to be some weird sex stuff. It's going to get weirder from here on out. Now's the time to turn it off if that's not for you. Or you know what? Turn it off if it is for you. If that's what you're listening for, go somewhere else, you weirdo.
Are you just gonna glance over the part where Bersmali's got to get Lucilla all warmed up in case they check her vagina?
I'm sorry. I must have either missed that part or blanked it from my mind, Ben. I'm sorry. You have to go back and explain now. What?
There's a part where they're wandering the city, right? And Lucilla's going to pretend to be an Honored Matre, like they send Honored Matres out to do work for some reason.
Yeah?
Yeah, you remember this, right?
Uh-huh. I remember her pretending to be an Honored Matre, yeah?
And they said they might check. Like they want to make sure you've had sex recently.
Why?
And so Bersmali is just he takes off his pants and he's like, I guess we gotta.
Why?
You can bleep as much of this as you need to because we have to put this on YouTube. Like, you're going to have to bleep some of this, but that happens.
God. Why would they go, like, they might check? Like,
they might.
Why would they check?
To make sure you're working.
I feel like there are better ways, number one. And number two, if you don't trust someone to work, just fire them. Oh my God. Ben, I can feel the life just draining out of my body. But, like,
dude,
I think this is why we're going on these tangents about how much we hate Kevin J. Anderson, because the alternative is we gotta talk about this book some more.
I just have to, if I don't punch Kevin J. Anderson, I'm gonna punch Frank Herbert. And I used to like him. Oh, I'm just so mad. Someone bring me Kevin J. Anderson. Why did Kevin J. Anderson do this?
Oh my God, what if this is the long con? What if
it was Brian Kevin J. Anderson the whole time?
No, what if Brian Herbert, he found the notes in the attic, but it was a mostly complete book, and he was like, oh my God, they're going to shit all over my dad's work if I publish this. No, I will take the bullet. I will hire Kevin J. Anderson on, and we will write something so mediocre all the fire will be redirected to us.
I wonder if you're onto something there. I wonder if you're onto something. Like, what if Frank Herbert's third book was so sexually deviant, so offensive, that he read this and he was like, oh my God, this... And that's why he can never show us the notes. He can never show us the notes because Frank Herbert was just a sex criminal. That's what they reveal.
So Brian he's sacrificing himself to save his dad's reputation.
He's like, I'm going to write the best Dune, even though I'm not much of a writer, I'm going to write the best Dune book I can because the fans need it or something. Even though Dune's popularity was like at an all-time low at the time they started writing.
It was to sacrifice himself, Ben.
I could believe that.
He selflessly gave himself up to scrutiny and scorn and hatred so that no one would know the real plans for Dune.
Buddy, 3 guesses how the Honored Matres keep control of the Catmen. Yeah.
Ben, why are there even Catmen? Like, I know because furries...
I don't fucking know, man.
But, like...
Because he's independently discovering hentai.
He's somehow doing it.
I don't know what's going on. Did Frank Herbert go to Japan? Is that what happened? Did they break him?
That's so crazy.
Like, seriously, I don't... It's mind-boggling. I don't know... You asked me the other day, You're like, Ben, do you have two books you'd like to revisit? Two books that you liked that you'd like to revisit to see if they're bad, like similar to what we were doing with the Christopher Morse stuff. And I told you, I was like, I feel like we've been doing nothing but that. I feel like we've been doing nothing but looking at books I used to like and tearing them apart. This is kind of where I was going. Like, as soon as I sat down to read Heretics of Dune, I was like, oh, it never should have gone this far. I never should have started this. I'll be honest with you, Nate. I don't even think I'd finished the series when we covered the first Dune. I might have still been reading Chapter House when we covered the first Dune on this podcast. I definitely hadn't read Hunters yet. No. Because I read Hunters for the podcast. So I didn't know that none of this went anywhere. Because, like, look, I can't pretend I'm just finding out that Frank's a pervert now. Like, obviously it's been there the whole time. But it used to go somewhere. Like, it used to go to, like, something about humanity. Like the God Emperor being a weird worm man. Like, it used to be mixed in with a lot more philosophy and stuff. But in this one, you're talking about the action. But it's also gratuitous sex. There's gratuitous sex and action. It's like his whole writing style was changing. And the only thing I can think is like, yeah, his wife died around this time and he married his editor. And now he's going off the rails. Like, it was off the rails before. It was always off the rails. But now there's
like
just
a controlled off the rails.
It was like somebody told him, like, that's gross, Frank. Cut that. Like, just the excessive, like, why do Molly and Lucilla have to have sex? They don't. It's not essential to the story. It's like you pointed out. I have to do mental gymnastics to even think of a reason for that to happen. But it's been 10 minutes. No one's had sex or beat anybody to death with their man fists. So we gotta...
both. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to do something. People are going to lose interest. And it's like, Frank, dude, what happened to the guy who just, like, there was a whole war that he just yada yada'd? Where's that guy?
Yeah.
I want him back.
You've had several wars that you just, yep, and then that happened, moving on.
Paul drops a literal nuke off screen. And in this, he's just, I don't know. And, like, I also don't know what is wrong with me. How did I not know that this was going to happen until I sat down to read it again? How did I not remember it was, like, this bad? Like, this excessive?
Yeah.
Why do we read books? What's that terrible line from The Hobbit? The movies? Like, why does it hurt so much? Because it was real. What the fuck does that even mean? So yeah, I don't know. Edit that. Edit that into something.
Yeah, I don't know who this is for.
Perverts.
No, I mean our episode.
I have no idea. Killhauer. He's the only one who made it this far.
He's the only one who's made it this far. Oh.
How you doing, man? Might as well just talk directly to you now. Somebody's got to be as frustrated as I am. Somebody has to be in the boat I'm in, where it's like, if you told me all of this...
Yeah, you're putting me there.
if you told me all of this led up to some big, important statement about the golden path, the future of humanity, all of this was like leading up to some breakthrough, some revelation, I could go back like we did with the eugenics in the first Dune and just be like, it's a weird thing, but it's a weird story. I bet I could retroactively justify all this just if there was something I could take from it. But there's not.
There's action, Ben. Explosions and fighting.
Oh, well, thank God. Okay, I'm back into it now. So who's this Marbella? Is she some kind of fighting badass?
In a sense, yes.
Oh, good. Good, because I was worried it was going to be more weird sex stuff.
Yeah, so...
Some good old-fashioned violence. Some American wholesome violence. Thank you.
Yeah, so...
Some pants-on violence. Let's do it.
I assume we're gonna put some sort of, like, warning at the beginning of this episode, but, like, here's an extra one.
I know you thought this might have peaked at the grown woman trying to seduce the boy child. I know you thought that might have been just so inappropriate. Like, what was going to top that?
Well, Ben, Marbella has a plan, you see. She's already imprinted herself on Duncan, and she's gonna fuck him. She's gonna fuck him in a very specific way that Duncan will be addicted to her pussy. I'm gonna gonna censor so much, so I might as well use that language, because fuck. So she gets in a little fight with Burzmali, and then Lucilla kicks her ass, and she's like, oh, forgive me, I didn't realize you were a great Honored Matre, and I'm just about to go fuck this Duncan Gola. I'm gonna fuck the shit right out of it. I'm literally going to fuck his brain out. I'm gonna go do that, and then.
Well, this is where there's plans within plans. Some good old-fashioned Duning going on here. So you see,
there's a plan within a plan.
There's a plan within a plan.
Oh, that's what they name their genitals, Ben.
The plans within plans was always a metaphor for so. Marbella has this is how we're going to do it. I breakthrough, Nate. I figured out how to do it. I figured out how to have this conversation. Okay.
When a man loves a woman, but hold on.
When a man has a plan and a woman has a plan. So Marbella has a plan for Duncan. And she begins to execute that plan on Duncan. But Duncan is a Tleilaxu Gola. And the Tleilaxu also had a plan for Duncan. And so when Marbella is executing her plan, that triggers Duncan's plan to activate, not unlike a trap card. And
you've activated my trap card. Super peace.
And so
trap card.
So Marbella starts planning, right? And she's planning real good. Like, these are some well-laid plans. Let me tell you. Not many people could look at these plans and not be very impressed. Like, if you saw the plans that Marbella was planning, you would probably go along with that plan. You'd have to. It's just such a good plan. It's a compelling plan. But Duncan, he's got plans of his own now, you see. And so every time she makes a point, Duncan makes a counterpoint. And they're having a kind of argument. A kind of rhythmic argument. Back and forth. Back and forth. And
Herbert, he really keeps talking about the area then.
and just when you think that Marbella's arguments, when you think
censoring, I thought that it peaked in Messiah when we talked about naked sword fighting, man.
So just when you think that Marbella's arguments couldn't be more well made, couldn't be more airtight, that's when Duncan comes in with a logical thrust and parries Mirbella's well crafted oral arguments. And the end result of this discussion is that we're going to go with Duncan's plan. Everybody just so you know that Lucilla and Burzmali, they were watching. They were watching the whole thing. They were in the audience. They love a good debate. They studied argument and counter argument, point and counterpoint, a lot of repartee. You know what I'm saying? And
so it's also part of like a race, except it's a reverse race where the person who crosses the finish line first loses, man.
Yeah. The first person to make their point is usually the loser, because that gives the opportunity for cross-examination. And so Duncan rests his case, and it goes to the jury, and the verdict comes back. Duncan's the winner. And now Mirbella has to do what Duncan says.
Oh yeah, that was real life. This was a thing that. So I read about 90% of the book, and then I was like, "All right, I gotta do some other stuff." And
I kept asking, "Have you gotten to it yet?"
I'll put on the audiobook, and when this part came up in the audiobook,
that was a mistake. Why would you listen to the audio?
Yeah, I was like, I am so glad I'm the only one at home right now. I would.
Did they do sound effects?
Of embarrassment. No. Oh my god, no.
I would have.
I think if you add sound effects, you could just post it straight to Pornhub. He starts talking about like the darkening of her area, and I'm like, "Oh, what? Frank,
why are they darkening? That's not how that works. What are you doing,
Frank? I need an adult, Frank. I need an adult."
Frank, they're not supposed to change color. What's going on, Frank? That's not how that works. It's like if ChatGPT was trained only on like alien biology books. It's so strange. I think he was having a midlife crisis, though. Ben, little did he know. Oh God, Ben, he was well beyond the middle.
Yeah, got him. I probably will have to cut this, but it kind of reminded me of Gandhi in the tent with all the naked women that he was trying to harness his sexual power. And after learning that, I was like, boy, I liked it better when I thought that he just,
didn't eat.
Yeah, he got the British to leave. Just with good old protesting and disobedience.
No.
I sure did not like to hear the story about how he laid in a tent full of naked women, one of which was his niece, but he didn't touch them because he needed to harness the power of his sexual energy, which is a theme, and that does come up at the end of the book. And that is what I thought of immediately, and just...
Oh, I'm sure that's exactly what it's inspired by. Fan of politics, he was.
And I guess of India, the Middle East, like that culture. I mean, maybe not a fan of the culture. They're totally different
cultures, but...
He did like taking names and stuff from their culture, at the very least. Yeah, anyway... I'm going to just read this from the Wikipedia. Stunned and exhausted, Mirbella dimly realizes that the man is the Gola they had been warned to search for, and unlocks the door to gain Lucilla's assistance in killing him. But Lucilla says, "We will kill no one. This Gola goes to Arrakis." So there you go. Mirbella is stunned and exhausted for some reason. And they're going to Arrakis, Ben. Going to Arrakis.
Yep.
Also, we were so distracted talking about the really, really weird scene right here that we totally forgot to mention that after this, after Duncan wins his fight, we'll call it, he gains access to all of his past lives. Not just the original Duncan, but every single Duncan after this. Every single Duncan that has ever been and has ever died, many of whom were crushed to death by the God Emperor. He's got all those memories back now. He is now a super Gola. That's super important, and somehow, I don't know how, it just slipped our minds. I wonder why that is. I don't know. Let's go back to Teg. He's gonna go into a safe house, Ben. That's totally safe. But this safe house has also been infiltrated by the Honored Matres. It's kind of a theme that's happening here, actually. It's kind of a big deal. And they're like, you've got a choice. Oh yeah, first of all, if my eyes go completely orange, I'll murder the shit out of you. But you got a choice, Teg. You either accept enslavement or death. And Teg is like, yeah, let's do that enslavement thing. And then when the Honored Matre gets there, he uses his super speed and strength and just murders his way out of there. And also now he can see no ships, Ben. Remember how those weren't supposed to be prescient proof, but I guess they're not prescient proof to a super mentat.
Doesn't he do something like sees them by like seeing around them or something?
I have no idea.
Am I making that up?
He said it was like on the very edge of his vision or something like that. I don't know what exactly it was, but he's able to see somehow. See in quotes.
Like he can't, he can sense them, but like he still can't see like what's going on inside them. He can just sense that there's something there.
And he knows that is Duncan and the gang, and he's got to go get him. Because you see, Ben, the Honored Matres attack Arrakis, and they kill Terraza. Like, this just happens pretty quick. I think the book was like, Terraza saw the treachery right as her legs were getting lanced off with a laser gun. And I'm like, boy, would have been great if you would have seen that treachery, like, 10 seconds before, you know? Like, just enough time to get out of the way instead of getting your shit cut in half. But, you know, better luck next time. And
that's the nature of treachery. It always comes when you're least expecting it.
And that's the nature of traps, Ben. She saw the trap, and that was it.
First step to disarming any trap is to see the trap. The second step, walk directly into the trap. Third step, question mark, fourth step, profit.
You triggered my trap card!
Laser gun.
Kunai with chain.
Oh God, was that a card?
Yeah. Kunai with chain, Ben. It's a trap card.
Oh dear.
So now Andrade, they touch heads, and she absorbs Terraza's memories, and now she is temporarily the Mother Superior. And she's like, we gotta get Shiana. We're going into the desert on a worm. Run away. And I don't know what happens to Waff. I kind of lost track of him.
I think Waff dies. I could be wrong.
The does not seem to indicate where he went. They just stopped talking about him.
Edit out does not seem to indicate.
What?
No, Waff survives. Waff survives.
I typed in Waff and it went to Waffle House.
No, Waff, this is why I got confused, because Waff is in Hunters of Dune.
Oh, it took me a moment to realize that you said Hunters and not the next one. Well, was he a baby?
I think it's one of his Golas.
A baby Gola?
I don't know.
Who's
Maybe.
Granny? Who is going to be the one? Oh no, sorry, that's Muppet Babies, right? Or I
Yeah,
don't know.
no. She's in there.
Who's the person who comes in and like they're like, "Oh, we have to be nice now because the adults in the room."
I don't know. Leto bit somebody's hand off. I guess they were doing something like childcare. Who cares? Who cares? All of these children are like all of these children are like demigods and prophets, and who cares? One of them's a wereworm. They don't need taken care of.
God, Ben. So, yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Fuck. Where are we? It's right at the end, right?
Oh God! I caught a spoiler for. You gotta edit this out. This is just between me and you. I caught a spoiler for Sandworms of Dune.
So, Teg meets up with Duncan and what's her nuts, and is like, "We gotta go get that worm and get all the main characters who are still alive together except Waff, and you guys, you're going to Chapter House, but me, I'm gonna have my second last stand, and this time it's for real, and we're gonna die fighting against the Covenant who glassed the planet, the Covenant of Honored Matres, that is, and then Dune is destroyed utterly and completely except for that one sandworm, and presumably the God Emperor's consciousness is gone. This was all Taraz's super secret plan we're finally going to get out of the shadow of the God Emperor. We're going to end his brain noodle, and we're going to get rid of this shitty fucking desert planet that has outlived its usefulness, and the end. The end, Ben. The end.
The end. To be continued?
To be concluded?
No. So, what'd you think? You want a rubric?
Yeah, I mean, if you take out some of the really problematic things, it wasn't horrible. I would say more stuff happened in it, and it held my attention better than the first book. It's literally lower than every other book, in my opinion.
Okay, let's see. Let's rubric. Let's see what we can do.
All right.
Give me just a second.
blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja, where you can follow along with your own rubric, the one person who's still here. Yes, I'm talking about you, Killhauer.
Love you.
You're getting all the free shout-outs. You're not even in our yacht plan tier.
He's yacht plan in spirit.
In spirit.
He's got the yacht in his soul. Okay. Content and ideas.
Let me see. Where the hell is the rubric, Ben? Rubric. There it is. Perfect.
What an intellectual start.
I'm leaning, I don't know, a 3+ or a 4. There's original ideas. For this book, they're about as clear and developed as I think that, like, I figure they're going to go somewhere, right? So,
yeah, you have to. Yeah.
So, like, a 3, do a 3+, you know?
I'm going with a 4. They're not, like, all good ideas. but they are there, and they are original. If
I'll
you
go
don't
with a 4.
count the, I mean, like this is definitely the Leibniz of hentai. That's a sentence I don't think anybody's ever said. Like Isaac Newton, that's the hentai everybody knows. Also a sentence I don't think anybody's ever said. But Leibniz, like, he was there.
Organization,
I tell you,
Ben.
that's who I'm going to recommend this to, by the way. Sex-obsessed anime nerds. Organization. I don't know.
Leaning towards a 4 for this one.
Yeah. This is
like
actually
it was understandable. Surprisingly.
This is one of his better paced books.
Especially considering how often he jumps around and places, and I felt like I knew what was going on most of the time, even when I didn't want to.
Yeah. Language.
I'm going to give him a 3, but I'm going to minus 1 point just because he's Frank Herbert, and I'm tired of having to read his stuff that's just like...
No,
and then they
I'm
got
sorry,
a T-probe.
I'm doing a 2. This is like... Look, Frank Herbert's
if you're
use of
doing
language...
a 2, then I'm doing a 2. I was being nice for your benefit, Ben.
No.
I think Frank Herbert... His weak point has always been how shit his actual prose is.
It's like if ChatGPT was trained on biology textbooks and circa 1950s Republican political speeches and then asked to write an erotica.
That is exactly what this is.
Combine that with the fact that he does not understand how language evolves, but he insists on trying to.
That's why I was giving it a lower. That's right, because the whole... I honestly...
Rackus,
when I heard
Dan.
Rackus and Dan and Gamu, and I was like, okay, this is really bad. I was going to give him a low score, but then I finished reading those last several chapters, and something happened to my brain, Ben. I don't know what happened, but here we are. I completely forgot that was why I was going to lower his score. Fucking Rackus.
Personal preference.
Why doesn't anyone else call them like the Jesuit then?
Yeah, I don't know.
Alright, personal preference.
Like, you know what would have been fun? You know how, like, Jesus is not that guy's name? That's a Greekification of Yeshua. Like, which, like, Joshua is like an Anglification of Yeshua? Like, what if they did something like that with Paul and Leto? Now, those are, like, Greek names to begin with. Like, what if they... But he would have to, like, understand language then, and that he doesn't.
Paulo.
Yeah. Personal preference.
I'm going to have to go with a 3.
I'm also going with a 3. I think this is my lowest Dune so far.
And spoilers, it ain't getting any better.
I don't know. There's one scene in Chapter House that legitimately offends me.
I'm still on the it's better than the first book one, because the first book I still just have
I have
not a whole lot
fun.
of positives.
I have a lot of fun talking about it. I don't like, I like the lore, but I think I like picking and choosing. And I think, like, I've noticed something when a lot of people cover this book. They'll cover the fact that the Honored Matres sexually dominate people. They'll cover the fact that like the Bene Gesserit use sex also as a means of quote unquote imprinting people, which is basically the same thing. But they'll never really get into the implications of that. That these people are basically inflicting sexual trauma for the sole purposes of controlling people, because they're ladies and it's hot.
And it coupled with the idea that women can't commit sexual assault from God Emperor. It's like, oh boy, not only was that a swing and a miss last book, but now you are showing it in action, and just, you're driving way past that point, man.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if it's a case of like I'm getting older, maybe I'm getting a little wiser, maybe I've just seen more of the world, but like I think Frank Herbert is definitely the type of guy who would see like a 15-year-old boy who had sex with a conventionally attractive female teacher and think nice. Like, and now it's just like, okay, well, I'm at an age, like when you're a 15-year-old boy, I think that makes a certain kind of sense. But like when you're an adult and you're like, oh no, that would actually be like, think that one through for a second and realize how screwed up that kid's going to be. Like that's where I'm at with this book is like the stuff he's suggesting. It's not okay. And he doesn't seem to be aware. Like what the Honored Matres are doing is described as wrong because it's like robbing people of their free will. And the reason that the Bene Gesserit don't do that, even though they do, is because they would never make themselves the object of worship.
Yeah,
but
that makes it so much better.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's better for them. Like the reason they don't make themselves the object of worship is because they have observed the human tendency to destroy one's own gods. Like, they know that once they do that, they're living on borrowed time. Like what Paul did, like what Leto II did. They became gods and they were eventually destroyed because they were gods. Like, so they're not doing it out of any consideration for like the victims. I don't think Frank Herbert understands that this is wrong.
Yeah.
And so like generally positive toward the book is the best I can do. 'Cause that's a pretty big moral disagreement for me, you know?
So there is one thing I needed to talk about that was right at the end that was like a lesson, Ben. It was, so you know that it's a stupid meme. John Bierce mentioned it in the Discord. Sorry, John, you paid for this. I'm like, my bad. Where it's like, hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make hard times. Like, wow, you just reduced, like, you're wrong. Like, you could look at big sections of history and be like, that's not how that worked at all. But Frank seems to actually do that. I mean, he did that in the first book where he's like, oh, the Sardaukar, they're strong because they're on a harsh planet, and that's why the Fremen are strong. Fine. But in this one, he's like, it's not that hard times, it's not that easy times make weak men, Ben. It's that easy times, it's so much easier to get your rocks off. And then, like, you're releasing all that sexual energy that you could be using to better society or whatever, or harness that for power, and like, that's why hard times make strong men, because you can't nut enough or something. And the end. See you for the next book.
Yeah.
And I was
all
like,
I can say
that was the
is
lesson I was learning?
there just can't be, it can't be a coincidence that Beverly Herbert died and the books suddenly became just obsessed with sex. Sex was always a theme. And weird sex even was always a theme. Like the Baron was there. The Bene Gesserit were always there. Like these are things he was thinking about, but now it's become like a weird hyperfixation for him. That like sex as it relates to the human spirit and human survival. And it's like, you know, there's something there maybe, because it is one of the driving factors of a biological organism, you know, like the need to reproduce, the need to get food, stuff like that.
Oh
but
my God, Ben. I think I just rubriced this, and even though I rated the personal preference higher than the original Dune, looking at the rubric, it's 2 whole points. Dune is 2 whole points above Heretics on my rubric.
wow.
Wow, indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess just to finish that point, like,
Because Dune gets a high recommendation strength from me. I'm sure plenty of people will enjoy it, even though the first part of the book is something that just needs to be written out of existence. Anyway, go on.
but yeah, like the sexual theme. This was obviously something he'd been wanting to talk about in some detail. And unfortunately, he introduces a lot of really problematic stuff. And I get the vibe that this was kind of like, and with the third book, I'll tell you why I did all that. And then he died. And then he left the third book in the capable hands of 2 of the stupidest men I've ever seen in literature. And so I can only conclude, yeah, maybe Frank Herbert was a weird pervert. I don't know where he was going with this. I can't imagine what he was going to say that was going to make some of this better. Recommendation strength on that note.
2, man. It's what killed it for this book, where Dune, I actually gave it a high recommendation strength, even though I didn't like the first Dune book, and I will maintain that most people who did are remembering more of the last half of the book, the interesting stuff with the Fremen, and they're not remembering the traitor that goes on forever, or the fucking whole chapter where he's opening a compass to spray it on the dune so the dune doesn't bury his bag so he can dig his bag out. But yeah, 2 for this, Ben. Recommendation strength. If you made it this far and you're into weird sex shit and go nuts, my personal recommendation is read to God Emperor, and that's it. God Emperor's dead. The House Atreides line is, it's not over, I guess, but the one that started with Paul and then Leto, it's basically a different house than what it was. And you can just imagine what the future could be like now that humanity is going to explode into the stars. And that's it. Yeah, I can't... I say I'm generally positive on it, but I can't imagine most people will be, and so I have to recommend it pretty low.
I think most people who made it all the way through God Emperor with still feeling good about it might be able to get to generally positive. But yeah, I do think he's going in a really uncomfortable direction, and I don't know if I'm like... You're my moral compass, Nate.
Okay.
Am I too hard on the weird sex stuff?
I will let you know after I read Chapter House, because I bet that's gonna really color my impression of
I think there's a problem for me there, because I know it gets worse.
Yeah, because
like I know
sex stuff
he wasn't
now
holding
is unpleasant. Where
like
they're
it's only
grooming
okay
a
now.
Child?
Yeah, it's only okay now because Lucilla didn't get to do what she wanted to do, and Marbella is closer to Duncan in age. bodily age.
Yeah.
But that will not stay the case.
Yeah.
I'm going to say recommendation strength is 2. Because I obviously, 5th book in a series, this is only for Dune fans. And I think with good cause, A, that it's weird, and B, that there's no satisfactory conclusion. You're starting a big, like, final act that is not going to end. So, yeah. So what's our total?
Mine's 53.
We picked the exact same things. So
Okay, well, there you go. Average would be 55. So I ended up giving this 2 stars.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So I still think Children was peak. God Emperor, great follow-up. Messiah, not bad. First one, ignore like the first half of the book and you'll have an alright time. And then this one, like, but actually, I like this more in the first book if you factor in all that first half of the fucking book that went on too long, so. But I'll read the next one and see where it's going, and I'm sure I won't like it based on what you've told me, and then that will definitely color my impression of the weird sex stuff, because, yeah.
Yeah, you want to think like maybe he knew it was wrong, but I don't think he did know it was wrong.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be.
He said it in God Emperor. Women don't sexually assault men. That's not something they can do. And I'm like, that was problematic when you said it back then, but it was just like a 1 or 2 throwaway sentence in the middle of a long diatribe, so like, I don't really focus on it. It was just something that I noticed that hard disagree, Frank, and now you're writing about it. Now you're putting that into action. And I'd really prefer if you would stop.
For a man so interested in the future of humanity, who is simultaneously so interested in sex and gender, he was surprisingly not forward thinking on sex and gender. So I don't, it's I don't know. Hey, if you made it this far, good on you.
Yeah, I'm probably going to just divide this in half. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thank you for making it this far. Killhauer, here's your free shout out. Don't get used to it.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, you got to earn those.
Yeah, everybody else, Nate will shout you out in post.
Yeah. Bye.
Good night. Look forward to Dune the movie.
Oh, God. Let's talk about our patrons, all of whom paid dearly for this episode, not only to exist, but to also exist as a 3-parter. In no particular order, you have John Bierce, a real writer. And then you've got That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster by Isekai Sensei Sama. And then you have James the Gravy Man from the If You Want the Gravy blog. And then there is Spooky Shy, or Shy with a Y, or both of those things. I don't know. Ben has not corrected me yet, so I'm saying both, and that's what I'm sticking to.
What? Whose power level is that? It's going off the scale. Sacre bleu. Could it be? The legendary super...
Mentat? Dune.